Oh god, that song played. Crap. I think that's enough. Whoa. That was not meant to be playing. Way too much JoJo. Right. That's the sign. I think that should be the official bell from now on. Oh man. That's weird. Okay, so welcome. Just for those who are just tuning in, I'm just collecting the roll at the moment. Just getting F's in chat. Just make sure you use your real names. I can't see who you are. I've got Anthony there. Let's check people off. Ibrahim, Eva's here. Shwezin, Lamb, Jess is here. And this is a weird role marking experience. Very out of body. Well, I can say without any irony right now that you have to subscribe to my channel to pass this subject. So whether you like it or not, you are now facing the new world of remote learning. So hopefully you are safe wherever you are. You've enjoyed a rather unusual break. Just keep in mind, I might have to designate someone to actually mark the roll for me. This is ridiculous. Is that Cameron? That's interesting. No, that's fine. You're more than welcome. If you're in my class, mark the roll. If you're not in my class, then get your teacher to mark the roll. I think Anne's here. In fact, I'll do it later, but I think I need someone to mark the roll for me next time I do this. Otherwise, I might miss a few people. But we'll get straight to the point here. I just saw Cal before. In fact, what I'll do... actually, no, this is pretty dumb. I'll do it next time. Richard, you here. Where else do we have here? Tree, Ibrahim. This one, of course. I mean, like, what's better than having a play button? Having two play buttons, alright? But if you're not sub to the other one, then there's a certain obligation for them. You don't have to send me super chats or donations, but that's something you want to do, then I'm not stopping you from doing so. I'll be checking the chat a bit later on as we're doing this. But we'll get started soon rather than later. If you haven't already pressed F in chat to get your name ticked off from my list, then do so. I actually don't need my headphones. I don't know why. This is my streaming kind of setup, so I don't want my headphones. We'll chuck it aside. Now, we're not here for any particular memes or games. We're here for our first touch for our topic. So, what we'll flip over to is if you haven't already seen the PowerPoint slides, then they're in the classroom link. But we'll flip through it together at the moment. So, this is what we are doing. So we have been working through Growing Up Asian in Australia, and you had a bit of holiday homework. You had to read 5 stories from this anthology, and then you had to complete a few questions. Now, I know half of us have submitted, half of us haven't, so if you haven't already done so, please do so by the end of today, so we can keep on moving forward. Now, knowing that this is going to be a strange situation where a lot of us haven't really had the same kind of start to the term and the holidays as we used to, I've decided to take a bit more time to unpack this anthology. One, because it's a very interesting anthology. If you haven't read the entire book, you definitely should. There are definitely some very good and real stories in there. I've got a few favorites myself, but each one is something you can resonate with. And the purpose of today is to kind of get why we're using this book and what we can do to use this as inspiration for us to write creatively. So I'll be mostly talking through this. I'll be checking chat a few times as we go along, but feel free to add a few things. If you have any questions, then just ask it, and we'll spend, say, about the last 10 or 15 minutes of this presentation going through and going through any questions you have. But this should be enough for you going forward so that you can do that. That's my gaming live stream. Oops. There we go. That's the screen I'm sharing. So let's firstly open with a few things. obviously, you've made it this far in the day, so you kind of know how it works. I'm assuming that other teachers have done something that's functional. So, as if already established, you will need to be present in the class. So I can mark you off. Either it will be like a check off, so I know you're here. I see people streaming chat right now, so if you're in Google Meet, just turn up and we'll do that. Otherwise, if I'm live streaming, then just kind of make yourself known in chat, and I'll tick you off as I go along. Now, the other things to keep in mind is that I'm mostly, if I'm teaching you something, I'm mostly going to be doing this through a live stream. I'm saying this after 2 periods of doing Google Meets. I'm ready to rip my ears off. I don't think Google Meet is going to be the best way for us to run most classes. So we'll be mostly doing anything that I'm doing. I'll present in video or live stream. You can catch up anytime you want. Whereas if we're doing work sessions, then we'll be going through in Google Meet. We'll be available. You don't have to necessarily be there for the whole thing if we're working on, say, drafts or writing, but we'll be flexible what we can do. Like I said, most of the time I'll be going through stuff on my end. If I'm showing you something like a demonstration or modeling a draft or something else, and then there'll be something for you to do either in the remaining time or in your own time afterwards. I know things will take a bit more time going through, but perhaps this may be how we best do things. So we'll work it out as we go along. And like we said before, take this chance to ask questions either in chat, in the comments. You know how it works, guys. Drop a like, subscribe, share this video. And a big thing is, look, I know we're trying to be flexible too, but just to bear in mind that I am not necessarily going to be available like 24/7. I know within remote learning, a lot of people are spending a lot of time to help you guys out. I'm doing what I can, but as you can probably see, 6 periods of this straight, it's going to be pretty exhausting for me, for you teachers, and for yourself as well. So if you email me and say 12 midnight, I'm probably not going to look at it. Same rules apply. But let's be reasonable, okay? So, hopefully make it work, and that's my preamble. Now, just to go to what you are currently doing, you are working towards a creative piece. Now, this is mostly a narrative. It could be a bit of personal writing, but it's going to be a creative piece. Now, I'll say this, for the most part, this is going to be, if we were marking this properly, this is typically the easiest SAC to do really well in. I know some people might have had a bit of trouble with the text response. Some people struggle with language analysis. From my experience in teaching this for the past 6 or so years, the creative SAC is where people tend to do very well. Either you're very, very good at applying your own experiences and doing really well, or it's your worst one. So it depends on where you go. But this is something where everyone can do well. So the main prompt we are working with is the prompt that the people around us, or it is those around us, who form who we are. And that's the prompt. So when you write your creative piece, you're going to be responding to this particular idea. Now, how you incorporate that is up to you. By the way, if you're in chat right now, please use your name. I don't know who Experiment is. I don't remember a student like that. So do make sure I know who you are. Just shout it out or something. But yeah, so your story is going to be about who, what influenced you. So how you include this is going to be what you explore. And the challenge is, how can you best portray this particular element? Now, the reason why we're also looking at these stories from Growing Up Asian is that I also want you to think about what sort of things they write about and how they write it. And you might include their style elements in your stories too. Maybe similar ideas, similar experiences. And the big point to make is they don't have to be real experiences. You can make things up, you can distort the facts, you can completely fabricate it. We're not marking you based on how accurate it is to real life. I don't know what your real life is, so it doesn't really matter, but what matters is you incorporate this in a creative way. So what we are focusing on today is the theme of identity and belonging. Now, I've had this question in the past, and you might also ask, but sir, what if I'm not Asian? That's a very good question, Hamish. That's okay. Ask your brother. But the best thing, wow, holy crap, Siri. The best thing about this is that it doesn't really matter what racial background you are. What we're exploring here is unique things about us as individuals, about us as families, about us as communities and cultures. Everybody has culture. Right? Even typical white bogan Australian has culture, and especially at a time like this where we're being called out for being Australian and doing the right thing. These are things which, in some way or another, whether it's whether you're a true blue Aussie or whether you have this weird half background where you're half you're Asian and you live in Australia, we have elements which we bring into our culture, and the culture around us affects us and influences how we grow up. So, me being, obviously Vietnamese Australian, let me flex that. Obviously, that's my background over there. But the main thing is, like, for me, I'm not going to be 100% Vietnamese. I'm not going to be 100% Aussie. I'm not going to be that easy to fit into a category. And that sort of cultural conflict and identity really defines what I do as a person every day, how I grow up, and how I go moving forward. And these are things which will also influence you. And you all have your own family influences and your friends and your backgrounds. And that's what you think about when you're going through this. So, you don't have to be Asian to do well in this topic particularly. If you do, that's great. But again, it's not about being Asian. It's about identity and what influences that identity. Now, our learning goal is to unpack the characteristics of these backgrounds and cultures and how it influences who we are. We've already gone through that, so we go ahead. Now, what I'm going to show you is a clip from a short film. Now, this is a 30-minute film. I studied this back when I was in Vietnamese school, way back. This film was produced by Khoa Do. Khoa Do is a film director. He's the younger brother of some of you might know, Ando, who is the comedian. And both Ando and Khoa Do are featured in this in the anthology in Growing Up Asian. So if you haven't seen their stories, you might recognize some of the elements here. Now, I studied this when I was in Viet school. Oh, by the way, a bit of trivia for those who didn't know. Khoa Do was the Young Australian of the Year in 2005. The reason why I know this was I was nominated for Young Australian of the Year 2005 and I lost to him. So he obviously deserved it. I didn't. Press F to pay respect to me in chat. But the funny thing is, when you look at this story, when you look at Growing Up Asian, you have to remember that unlike the thing around your neck, all these stories are real stories. They're real people. I know some of these people for real. They actually grew up in our area. They went to 4C. I went to a different school around here. Alice Pung went to 4C. Diana Nguyen, who wrote the File Versus Point You Vietnamese Mother, went to 4C, I think. I know her. I've met her. I've been to her shows. But they're people I know. So these are real stories. And when I read this, they're very much my stories. But I'm sidetracking here. What I'm going to show you, if you haven't already seen this, I'm going to show you. Why am I doing this? Oh well. I'm going to show you. These are streaming habits. I'll show you the video. We'll watch it together. It's about, say, 10 minutes long. And it gives us a bit of an insight as to how an Asian family works. And I want you to think about how this might reflect you. What parts of this video can you see in yourself? Let's have a watch.
Thằng Chí không đến thì ai ủi bây giờ? Con đến đi đâu? Sao không kêu nó? Bây giờ nó mới đến được. Ok, bye bye.
Yeah.
Hôm nay trên trường tụi con có bận cái gì lắm không? Hôm nay nhà mình phải giao hàng gấp lắm đó. Con ở nhà giúp mẹ đi nha.
Con ở nhà cho.
Con đang học lớp 12, con lo mà học bài đi.
Hôm nay đâu có gì đâu, just stuff for English.
Hôm nay con phải đi học.
Your teacher's not gonna say anything.
She will.
Oh yeah, year 6 is a big year.
Nói tiếng Việt.
Hôm nay con phải đi học tại vì chiều nay nè mẹ phải mấy con trên trường. Có parent teacher interview, remember?
Hôm nay mẹ bận quá đi.
But mom.
Để hôm khác coi nếu mà mẹ xong sớm.
Sao mẹ ăn những cái trái được vậy nó hôi á?
Tối nay con nhớ phải học bài đó.
Yeah. After basketball.
Trang, thay quần áo ra đi.
Glad you're happy.
Don't worry, it's never.
Right, I'm gonna pause this, guys. I'm having a lot of PTSD at the moment, man. We're not even halfway through this clip yet. This is like a half an hour video, but it's like 10 minutes. But I'm having PTSD. This is like my household. This is my entire life here. I'm sure you guys relate to it exactly. And I think anyone who relates to it, just shout it out right away because this is so real to me. My family is the same thing. Speak nothing Việt. Oh my god. Let's keep it going. I'm gonna cry this.
Went to mine. They're boring.
Hai đứa nhanh nhanh lên.
Yeah, but I'm gonna get in trouble by Mrs. Corrigan. She didn't come last term.
You're lucky she doesn't want to go.
But everyone else's parents are going.
Be stressed for your workday. Hey, you going to help your uncle, hey? Chị Triều ơi, phụ dưỡng tay được không?
Trang, mẹ cần con đi stem cái label này liền cho mẹ.
Oh yeah!
Look out!
Don't worry, your uncle here is stronger than Arnold Terminator.
Con đi stem label cho mẹ đi.
Ra, con lượm mấy cái này lên giùm cô. Đằng kia kìa.
Con gặp ông Huy ở chợ nữa đó. Ông ấy bây giờ giàu lắm. Có nhà lầu ở bên sau. Còn sắm 2 chiếc Mercedes nữa đó.
À, tôi nói với bà rồi, phải 20 năm về trước mà bà chịu nghe lời tôi.
Thôi đi, ông ấy vừa gầy mà còn xấu như ma.
Mẹ nói con không có được bò ra khỏi cái thùng như chứ. Lo cho tụi nhỏ hoài chán quá.
Mình thì hy vọng sau này tụi nó có kết quả tốt đẹp. Chứ trường học con Trang á thì phải trả tiền mắc lắm á.
Tôi chỉ hy vọng là nữa sau này lớn lên á, tụi nó không có thảy mình vô nursing home như mấy thằng Tây là được rồi.
Ủa, cái Phương đâu rồi? Phương? Phương à? Trang, cái Phương đâu con? Hồi nãy nó ở đây mà.
Mẹ tưởng con coi chừng em mà.
Mấy cái áo ở đây đâu rồi? Con có lấy không? Cha đâu có touch cái thùng đó đâu.
Ông Lễ đem đi giao hơn 1 tiếng đồng hồ rồi.
Tại sao con không coi chừng em?
Ôi mẹ.
Good one. Now look what you have done.
Phương. Phương.
Hello? Yeah, just hold on. Ông chủ, ông có kiếm chi lễ, mẹ muốn nói cái gì?
Hỏi ông ấy coi ông muốn cái gì?
Hello? Yes, that's Lee Chan. I'm back now. What? They no good. Another 80. For when? Cái bó hàng mình mới giao ấy, tay đi nó ủi sao hết rồi. Bây giờ ông chủ ông muốn mình giao cái bó hàng kia ấy. Chiều nay trước 6 giờ ấy.
Trời ơi.
Yeah, it's early. Okay, I'll have for you then. No worry. Bye bye, sir.
Phương. Phương.
Con sẽ tìm ai được trong trai quê nè.
Phương. Cục cưng của mẹ. Làm mẹ sợ quá.
Hello, what's up, man?
Hôm nay mày phải làm hàng gấp đó. Con phải ngoan nha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, that's my fault. Whoops, my bad. There's more to it. I was gonna pause for a moment because this is exactly what I do, or what I used to do in my youth childhood. My mum used to sew clothes as well, and that was a very poignant experience. Where's the video, by the way? Where'd it go? Sorry about that. We're about here somewhere. The reason why I paused was because this guy here is a player.
What? He's not paying us? Oh, are you serious?
This guy is Quado, so he's the one who made the film. That's Anders' brother.
Oh, okay, love you, man. Cái tuần á, công ty của anh á, em hơn 1.000 đồng một tuần á.
Wow, hèn gì mà anh có xe đẹp.
Come on, we've still got lots to do.
Xe anh á hả? Có Mac Wheels nè ha, có đi công nè ha. Cái dàn nhạc tuyệt vời luôn. Còn tuần tới á, anh còn mua thêm á, cái cặp subwoofer nữa.
The manager called and he said that the shirts you delivered weren't done right because Danny didn't iron them properly.
Anh có muốn ngồi à? Sao anh không?
Dòm coi này, dòm đây nè. Mày có biết hồi sáng á, hãng nó không có trả tiền cái món đồ mình giao không? Bây giờ tao phải làm thêm 80 cái áo nữa. Mày thiệt là đồ vô dụng mà. Mày đi về đi, đi.
Yeah, we'll stop it there. I just got the full screen button. Of course, I should know this, but there we go. I've seen it. So I want to talk briefly about this because when we watch these things and when we engage with these stories, we need to bring ourselves into these stories. So I said before, like this is kind of like a PTSD to me because this is how I grew up. A lot of Asian families who came over from Vietnam set up sewing firms basically, because obviously when you come from overseas you have issues like you don't have the skills, you don't have the language, so you have a lot of people who might be very qualified in Vietnam, doctors, nurses, teachers. They come here, they become hairdressers, they become mechanics, they become people who sew clothes. It used to be so normal. Everyone I knew, their parents sewed in the back rooms. This is basically sweatshops, right? So the clothes you buy from Big W or Maya, likely my mum would have made it. Like you get one template, we call it mole in Ding Viet. So you have one template and they tell you make 1,000 of these. And you have a deadline to get delivered, hence why it's delivery day. I know many people probably can't relate to this because their parents didn't work like that, but my parents, my mum especially, and my aunt, they did this, and it's really full on because you have to literally make 500 dresses exactly the same. And if a stitch is wrong, if it's wrong ironing in this case, then the whole thing's scrapped. Your whole livelihood is based on how fast you can pump out 1,000 dresses or 1,000 shirts. So that's very much a real thing. I used to be trained. I used to like cut the labels and do it myself. So that is, of course, like I said before, a very distinct thing. Now again, not everyone relate to it. I'm sure a lot of us in some ways can resonate with things like the language, the pressure, the unfairness. So I'm going to leave a few kind of like discussion things here. You can think about it in your own time because I'm going to go through the rest of it right now. But some key points to think about, what makes this family Asian, and there are so many things which stick out to us. Like the obvious things, they speak Vietnamese, they have like durians and noodles. The household is very Asian. But at the same time, there are other things too, things which are less distinct. What the parents do to earn a living. You have the funny uncle. I'm sure everybody has a funny uncle somewhere. But even things like the expectations. So like these kids have to leave school. They have to take a day off to help the family get everything done. I mean, that's not uniquely Asian, but that's something which a lot of immigrant families will experience. And some of you might notice too, having to work instead of going to school to make money to help your family out and so on. And something else to consider is that while this story is focused on Trang as the main character, each character has their own burdens. So you have Trang, who is the youngest one. You have Vu, the older brother, who seems to... the older brother. He's the one who, even though he has a bit more privilege, he also has expectations because he's the man in the house basically, and he has to handle the phone calls because the family doesn't speak English. There's a scene there where he had to fake the accent to be uncle. It's kind of like, oh yeah, it's me, I'm back now. He has to fake being the uncle, and he has a lot of adult responsibility. He has it easier, sure, but he also has that burden of expectation as the oldest son. And you have mum, of course, who doesn't speak English, he has to earn a living here, has to work like a sweatshop to make it happen. And all these things put pressure in some way on each of the family. Hence why we see, in terms of freedom and agency, each of these people, in some ways, don't have control of their fate. They can't, like, Trang wants to go to school. The whole point of the story, by the way, the whole conflict is that she wants to go to parent-teacher interviews. That's what the whole thing is set up to be about. Now, the result of this is that, spoiler alert, you probably won't see the movie anyway, but the movie is about how they have to get this new delivery done by the end of the day. Again, make like 200 dresses or shirts the same way by the end of the day. You have like 3 or 4 people just going full on. And Trang wants to go to parent teachers. So the story progresses where Vu has to drive the family van with all the shirts, and they have to drop it off at the warehouse to get paid. So on the way, Trang thinks that she can make it to parent teachers. So they could make it, but they get stuck in a traffic jam. And what ends up happening is they have to choose between either making delivery or going to parent-teacher interviews. And in the end, Vu, despite the pressure of being the breadwinner for the family now, he chooses to go to the interview. He faked being the dad. This is really bad impression. It's so bad. I remember the scene. The teacher goes, "Oh, Trang's doing really well in school, but she should be playing more sports." And Vu, who's faking being dad, says, "It's okay. I teach her how to play basketball." And that's the story. And they have this moment where they go home, they haven't delivered any of the goods, and they don't get paid. Uncle Lee, the funny Arnold Terminator guy, he cracks it, he smashes a beer bottle, and they have this brother-sister moment outside. Very interesting short film. I just can't find it because it's like a really old film. It's Quado's first film, and nowadays he's made more films, but that's one to really stuck out to me. And what I'm trying to say is, like, when we watch these things, we want to connect. We want to connect to these stories. So the next part of this, and time we have left over, we're going to talk about each of these stories, and I'll probably do more detail next lesson. We have a bit more time, but we're going to fly through and talk about what each of these stories tries to do. And as we read through these, think about these things. What do we look for, and how can this help you create your own written creative piece? So think about the events of each story. Think about the symbols that are used, maybe objects or food or things which represent who people are and what they do. Think about how people feel, especially internal monologue, because these are creative stories written from a personal perspective. They share thoughts and insights which we don't see when we look at other people. We assume things. We look at each other in class and we go, "Oh yeah, Eric, he's Vitkay, I'm sure he had the same experience as I do." And we might have a lot of similarities. But I might look at someone like, Eva or someone like Anthony, and I would have no idea what it's like to be in their family. And honestly, some of the weird things I've been through, I've been to just to be very, very blunt, I've been to one white family. I know this sounds weird, but I don't normally visit families. I went to one Australian family, and I almost cried because it was like, I walked in and the mum says hi, the parents actually support the kids and drive them to their special events. I never got that, and I can't think of a single family which I grew up with, an Asian family, where the parents actually drove them to play sport or drove them to a speech contest. You would never do that, and that sort of thing was a culture shock to me, where you actually have a family supports what you do. Maybe it's just me, but maybe it's just you as well. So let's talk through some of these stories. So I'm assuming you've read this. If you haven't, then I'm going to you have a bit of time to catch up. But remember, holiday homework. But this will hopefully give you some insights. Is that a full screen button here? Oh, there we go. I finally figured it out. There we go. There. Like, trust me to figure it out at the end of the screen that there's a full screen button. Oh well, we're learning things as we go along. Now it makes more sense to me. All right. So the first one is 5 Ways to Disappoint Your Vietnamese Mother. This one is by Diana Nguyen. She's, by the way, a stand-up comedian. I've met her. I've been to one of her shows. So like I said, I think we know each other in some way. And I've seen her around at some of the YouTube meets that we do for famous YouTubers like me. And yeah, she runs a web series called Fee and Me. It's a typical Asian family. It's a parody of a family. It's a pretty interesting series. And she does a lot of keynote speeches and public speaking as well. Anyway, so her choice as an actor, obviously for Asian families, it's a pretty bad idea. The expectation is, doctor, lawyer, engineer. So being an actor was a really, 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 really bad idea for her. So what we see from Diana's story is how, of course, to disappoint your parents, or in this case, her mother. So we always have the culture of expectations. Your parents often want you to turn out a particular way. Doing a certain job, having a certain husband or wife, not until after school, of course, and that sort of thing. So, when she talks about her experiences in her 5 dot points, she reflects on things like her choice to be an actor, and the story goes through how she enjoyed performing arts, and her mum supported her, but only in school. And once she got to like year 12, then she couldn't do it anymore. I think a lot of us saw the same sort of thing. I mean, being serious here, right? Something I find strange, especially with Asian students, is like people play sport. You might play basketball or soccer, but only until you reach year 11 or year 12, and then you quit. All right, that's kind of how they see things. So, of course, your parents will say that you should be doing physical activity, because a good parent will encourage the kid to be very fit, not fat. But you only do it as like they let you do it, that they tolerate you doing it until you reach year 12 or year 11, and then you quit it and then you focus on your studies. So that's the kind of like mindset that Diana's family went through. Things like vid school. Do we have to talk about vid school or any language school? I want to tell a funny story. So when I was at the VU day years ago, this is not you guys, but a different group, but there was a question by one of the students, and that was, should I do language school? And there was me and another teacher, and we both simultaneously said the exact opposite. Yes and no. And we were both so strongly opposed to each other, and it was kind of a weird thing. What it was that the person asked was Greek. All right, and Greek school is a bit different to Viet school, because in Greek culture, in my opinion, it's a bit more dynamic, a bit more extroverted, and you tend to speak a lot more at home because you talk to a lot of people who speak Greek. I went to Viet school, and in Viet school, it is a horrible experience because they're speaking language you don't understand. You don't normally speak to your parents or other adults, so that alienation makes you feel very uncomfortable in many cases. So I hated doing Viet. I absolutely hated it. I wanted to do Japanese because it was a different language. I wasn't going to be judged on it because my dad spoke it, but we didn't speak Japanese at home, obviously. But we had an argument, and my dad forced me to do Viet, whereas I wanted to do Japanese. I did both in the end, and Viet was my worst subject, Japanese was my best subject. So, that's how it is. But that strong element of learning language, we'll see it later on in a different story, of learning language to maintain your culture is a very strong element. And, of course, having the boyfriend. Not just having a boyfriend in general, but having the right culture. Oh, my God. You might disagree with me here, but I don't think my dad, I'm sure he'll be happy if I ever get a partner, if they're like Vietnamese or Chinese, even Australian. That's to be normal. We're quite a progressive family. But I think he'll disown me if I have an Indian partner. Okay, that's the kind of the racial background we have. That's how we grew up. He thinks of the stereotypes and thinks, no way, that's a dirty lifestyle. And I think with Dinah's case, I'm not sure if her boyfriend was white, but that's the sort of thing which would immediately grab that attention. So, yep, that's kind of disappointment, and that's the big theme is disappointment. And the question I'll leave for you to think about is, how would you disappoint your parents if if they're not already disappointing in you? In what other ways could you disappoint your parents? Isn't it a uniquely Asian thing? Like I said, every family has expectations. What are ways in which your parents could be disappointed in you? Think about how that influences what you do. Next up, and we said before, was language. I know, by the way, that's not a Chinese book. That's what I have right now. I'm Viet, I'm sorry. But we just talk about learning language. I've just mentioned before the regret about learning language. Now, I hated Viet when I was learning it, but I appreciate it a lot more older because I've been through and interacted with more people who really value and treasure the ability to communicate in their language. And this is the story of Amy Choi. Now, just to be brief, Amy is Chinese, and the story is about her as a young person disliking learning Chinese. She just didn't want to learn it. She quit it. But as a result, she has this awkward thing with her grandfather. Her grandfather doesn't speak English, and she can't communicate with him. Now, she sees herself as her grandfather's keeper, which really annoys her as a young person. But when he starts becoming older, he becomes he has dementia, I guess you can call that. He loses his way. Then she starts to feel that guilt of not being able to communicate with her grandfather. And when he passes away, that guilt comes back to haunt her. So the moral of the story is that she now knows more Chinese than she started, at least spoken Chinese, and it impresses people in the restaurant. But it's that trigger. Like, we often reject, and okay, just gonna flip at the camera here. We often reject our culture because it's force fed. Right? Her boyfriend was Chinese, thank you. Yeah, it's kind of force fed into you, so you kind of reject it. Some people have it easier. They might find it easy to consolidate their different sides, your Australian side and your other side. But a lot of people are force fed their culture. An example for me is I went to Scouts when I was a kid. My dad made me go to Scouts because he went to Scouts in Vietnam. Therefore, I would go to Scouts here. A Vietnamese Scout group, not an Aussie one, a Vietnamese one. It was boring as F. I hated it. It caused a lot of trauma as a child. There was a lot of bullying, a lot of anxiety, and I cried. It was a horrible experience. I did it for 5 years, and I never loved it at all. And people love Scouts for good reason too. They were good Scouts, but I went to a very, very bad one. The point was that we have this thing where I didn't appreciate this. All right, and our parents forced us to do this because that's what they're used to. Whereas the reality is, when we accept our culture and we do it on our own volition, then we have a better appreciation for it. So I guess it's kind of like Amy's dilemma, is that she was forced to learn Chinese, and because of that, she rejected it. But because of rejection, it came down later on when her family needed her and she couldn't be there for her family. Our next story is going to be this one. It's a food one. One of my favorite stories in the collection. No, it wasn't Food Dog. It was Tang Long. It was an older one. Now there's Food Dog. They merged together, but now there's one kind of combined one. In case you were wondering. So exotic result. Now I'll be honest. All right. Press F. No, not press. No, like in chat. Which one of you did not know what a risol was? Let's be honest, okay? This may be a stupid question for like 3 of you, but who did not know what a risol was? Didn't know what it was. I actually went to Woolworths, like this is years ago. I bought like microwave risoles to find out what they were. That's how Asian I am. Like, we don't have this in our culture at all. But that's what I find fun about the story, is that this is something which it exposes some really obvious things, but it also leaves gaps, and this is kind of what the story is about. We have two characters, Tanvir and Daryl. Tanvir is, I think, Pakistani, and Daryl is he's Aussie. And you know, Tanny he's completely sick of like his food at home. So his mum cooks curries, there's curry everywhere, and he's sick of it. And of course, being the mum, she tells him like he eats too much, he's too fat, and so on. But she feeds Daryl, and Daryl's like the best because he's the outsider. You know, he's very polite. You know, he's like the son which her mum wanted. His mum wanted, or Tanny's mum wanted rather, and you know it's kind of a bit of a jealousy in me because Tanvir wants Daryl's life. It's simpler, whereas you know Daryl wants Tanvir's life. And the symbol of the risol is quite interesting because the title of the story is exotic risol. A risol in a lot of you know Anglo cultures is a pretty normal food. It's like a steak or it's like a burger patty, all right. So it's a fairly normal food. It's not a luxury food. It's like all right, to flip it around, again, my expertise is being Asian. That shouldn't be surprising. But it's like, it's from Bangladesh, sorry, thank you. All right, it's like how people treat spring rolls as really special. You bring spring rolls to work and like, oh, spring rolls is like a luxury dish. We make we make 1,000 at a time, all right? When we make spring rolls, we just mass produce them. So to us, a spring roll is a staple food. Whereas if you go to like a typical like non-Asian background, like you go to a restaurant, what do you have? Spring rolls and fried rice. That's basic. Like that's just basic food. And then yet it's exotic, it's foreign. And that's what we talk about here with the story is that for a risol, for Tanvir, it is an exotic food, whereas in actuality, it's quite a normal food. So it's a matter of perspective. And again, we see things like he goes to Daryl's house and he sees like the soda fountain. They make like the fizzy drinks. By the way, I don't have one. All right, if I saw it, I'd be like, whoa, it actually makes drinks fizzy. Whoa, that sort of thing. So the simple things that we don't have in our family, we think are really cool. Whereas our own families have our own rich cultures and food, we don't consider them the same level because we grew up in it. And of course, part of this is how it's actually not what we imagine it to be. You know, we think the other person's life is so much better. In Tanvir's case, he has a very controlling mum who's very, you know, very dictating of him, whereas Daryl seems to be quite laid back. Turns out that Daryl has a broken family. You know, he's a single mum. His father left him, that sort of thing. So that sort of thing kind of leaves that surprise twist. And in the end, the symbol of food represents that we really want this, but do we actually really want this? Is it really representative of what we see them to be? And the question I'm leaving behind is, you know, in some ways, what are your experiences you've had with like foreign food? You know, was it really as surprising as you thought it was? And what could it show you about what you see about foreign foods? I think I have a few minutes left over, so we'll finish it up here. So next one's a name one. We talked about, here we go, the big word, epistemological violence. Yes, from Thing Around Your Neck. Think about things like changing your name. And in many cases, and we spoke about this in our previous unit, many of us have to either use an English name or adopt an English name. So, you know, you don't really, a lot of us keep our original names, a lot of us don't. And in this case, Sunil is an example. The photo, by the way, is Sunil Gavaskar. He's a famous Indian cricketer, for those who enjoy cricket, or one of you in class to do so. But Sunil is kind of a shame because he's teased for it. Firstly, he's Indian, I think, so he's got dark skin and people make fun of him. And for some reason, people can't say his name. I don't know about you guys, but Sunil seems pretty easy to me. But we talk about a time, like 20 or 30 years ago, where any name which wasn't like Bruce couldn't be pronounced. So Sunil, people couldn't say it, Sunils, whatever. So he decided to change to Neil. And that makes sense. Sunil, Neil, very, very Anglo name. But of course, changing names pisses off his mum completely. She goes on this like tirade about who the hell's Neil, and she tells him about how it's a really special name, it's inspired by the gods. It turns out she's making it up, so he finds I just meant a dark one, a bit of irony there. But let's talk about names. So it's kind of like how we see names, and especially now we have a very multicultural society. We're used to seeing foreign names. So if you go to a different country, which is more monoculture, you won't really see a huge diversity of names. Growing up here, I mean, I didn't see many people with like Arabic names, for example. But now that I've been teaching for a long time now, I know my Muhammads and Ibrahims and Zulfikars, and it's quite normal. But growing up would have been quite weird. So kind of think about how this shapes your perspective about your own name. For many of us have that conflict between what name we use. So think about your own name. Think about what you associate with. We mentioned before with Eric. I'm not picking you a lot today, but we mentioned before, like, do we call Eric Hoy, or do we call Kang? What's your name, Kang? Like, Bruce or Tyler or something. Like, we have like English names people don't recognize, but that's how it works. Our last story, by the way, is Perfect Chinese Children. I've chosen a photo of me, by the way, from way back in the day. This when we won the VC award. That's me, the token Asian over there. And this to me, this is a long story, but I think this really epitomizes that Asian culture and expectation. So Vanessa is a halfie, and I'm sure many of you know how halfie is. She's half Aussie, half Chinese. So I think Anthony, you probably like this a lot more than I do. But you kind of have like the worst of both worlds, not the best of both worlds, the worst of both worlds. So you have to you're not only not pure Chinese, but you need to kind of prove yourself double to justify that you are superior in some way to your Chinese brethren. So she's compared a lot. That's a very typical thing in many traditional families, compared to your cousins, your friends, your aunts, boyfriends, sisters, pet dog or something. And it's always that expectation. And when I was reading this again, I didn't really pick it up, but it turns out that Vanessa, of course, is unhappy with the way she's grown up. She has to study hard, but she doesn't get supported by her mum a lot. She doesn't get the things that she wants. But at the end, she realizes when they're dividing the chicken wings that the mum has all along, who's been really pressuring her to think about what it means to give up. So she only has one wing for herself. And all this time, all this pressure from my parents, and I feel the same way when I was being pressured by my parents. They pressure you because they're sacrificing a lot for you. And that's that epiphany which Vanessa reached, and and I kind of resonated with as well. And the question I'm leaving here is, what sacrifices have your parents made? So we'll probably end it here because it is period 4 now, which is kind of weird saying this, but those are some of the thoughts I have talking through this. Hopefully we just shed some light to some of the things there. I'll leave the slide here for you to think about. There is a worksheet, but we'll do the worksheet tomorrow. Okay, so the worksheet with this lesson, we'll go through it tomorrow. We won't do our live stream, we'll probably do a Google Meet instead. But do check in them. Anyway, guys, hope that was helpful for you. I know we've run a bit over time. That's pretty normal for us. And hopefully, if you missed out, then just check this again when you go back. And hopefully, you enjoy the rest of your day. Anyway, thanks for checking in, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Help the channel a lot. And I'll see you all next time.